Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on April the 10th, Thursday, April the 10th, and welcome to our commentary. I guess the big story of the day is that the House of Representatives, passed the Republican bill or budget bill. Now it goes to the Senate for what they call reconciliation, where both houses get together and debate this and that, but it very likely will be brought to a final vote under the reconciliation concept, which is when you can get through something through the Senate with only a simple majority. The Republicans have 53 votes, so they should be able to do it. And this is a great opportunity to basically put in there many of the things that you would never get 60 votes for, including what they just voted for, which is the requirement that every American must prove citizenship when they vote. Now, let me take that back. Maybe that will not be able to go through reconciliation because it is not a budget item. So I take that one back. But they'll be able to get a lot of things through, like the no tax on tips and anything that has to do with the budget that they can put in as a budget item can go through reconciliation. So it should be a huge package when they pass it. And it should be like a huge stimulus, I think, to the economy because they're going to make the Trump taxes permanent, which is a good thing. And they're gonna do more for energy production, which is deeply necessary, given how unstable the Middle East is. So I think it's a great step, and it's a big victory for President Trump. It passed the Senate, it passed the House. Now it only passed the House by I think one or two, and exactly why they didn't get a few more Republicans, I don't know. But it was 216 to 214, which means that five people didn't vote. Now, I don't know what those people are doing, why they didn't vote. I know, to be fair, that one of them passed away, and that was that congressman from Texas, Sylvester. I think his last name is Sylvester, who passed away, and I don't know when that election is going to be. There are a couple of other seats in New York, I believe, that are also pending elections or special elections, but they got it through. 216, 214. So they had the majority. And now, as I said, it goes to the Senate for reconciliation. That's not going to be a hand-me-down situation. It's going to be difficult because there are some senators that will require some cuts, and some House members of the House are also going to require some spending cuts. So, they're going to have to do some big-time compromising. But I think at the end of the day, they'll get it through. And President Trump will then have the big signing ceremony, which is, I think, what he's looking for to show that he is moving the ball forward. So I think overall it was a big day. It was a big day, even though, as I said, they only got a close vote, but they got enough to get through. And that's what you need. You just got to get it through the majority. Now it'll go to reconciliation. As I said before, this is where you only need 51 votes in the Senate. You don't need the usual 60 to pass it through. So a big victory for President Trump, a big victory for Speaker Johnson, and of course for the Majority Leader Toon over in the U.S. Senate. So a big day. I also saw today, this is at lunchtime, I had a chance to watch a little bit of the TV today, and I saw that President Trump was doing a live cabinet meeting. Now, I don't remember any other president doing it exactly that way. Maybe they did. I just don't remember. But it is a very clever idea, extremely clever idea on the part of President Trump to do that, because, first of all, it exposes the cabinet members to a little publicity. A lot of these cabinet members, you don't really hear about them. Everybody knows about the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, the Attorney General, of course, the Secretary of Treasury, who, in my opinion, is doing a fantastic job right now. But you don't hear that much about, the Secretary of Agriculture, who's a lady from Texas. You just don't hear much about them, or the person in charge of the what is that? The environmental EPA, the person in charge of that, Lee Holden, who I hope at some time in the future sometime in the future runs for governor of New York City again. I think he's brilliant. Lee Holden is brilliant, and I like to see him someday go back to New York and run for the Senate again. But right now he's in the EPA, and he's been very visible as well. So these meetings do a lot to expose the cabinet, and that's a smart thing. I think that's a smart thing. That kind of visibility, I think it's a smart thing. Well, a couple of stories. I have a post over at the American Thinker today talking about all of a sudden everybody's writing a new book about President Biden and his condition when he was president. It's like everybody's got a brand new book. Everybody's got a book. And of course, the latest one, and this is what my post is about, brings up a comment that George Stephanopoulos made that was quoted in the book. George Stephanopoulos, of course, is from ABC News. He does the Sunday morning program. He's also a longtime Democrat operative going back to the Clinton campaign. And there's a reference in the book about Stephanopoulos meeting with President Biden and feeling so sad and almost feeling like a lonely grandson, talking to a dejected grandfather. And that, that may be true. I'll cut him a little slack on that. Those things can happen when you get emotionally attached to people. But he didn't do the country any favor by holding back. None of those guys did the country any favor by holding back this information. This should have been out there, because what is becoming more and more obvious to anybody who wants to pay attention is that President Biden was in no shape to be running the country. He was not at all equipped to handle a nuclear crisis, had there been one, or any kind of crisis, really. I think he was laid back. Other people were making decisions for him. Other people were, using the auto pen. I'm pretty sure about that. I cannot prove it to you right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if other people were using that auto pen on behalf of President Biden. So this was, I think, a real black mark for the staff, his inner staff, and also I think for some of the media who knew what was going on but chose not to say anything. And I thought it was interesting. I was watching an interview with Chuck Todd. I guess he used to be at NBC. I'm not sure where he's at now, or maybe he's still at NBC. I don't know. But he was saying something on a program where he was saying that, yes, I think a lot of reporters did not want to report anything negative about Biden because they didn't want to be accused of helping Trump. And I believe that. I'm glad to see that Chuck Todd came out and admitted that, because I think that was, in fact, the case. I think there were some reporters who were so afraid of helping Trump, or at least doing anything that would be good for Trump, that ended up, I think, harming the country, and probably in a direct way, they ended up hurting themselves or their reputation, and unfortunately, the reputation of their profession. So I think there's a lot of soul searching that has to go on, but it's clear by now. That's 2 books already, maybe 3 books already that have come out. And I'm sure there's going to be more, because everybody right now knows that this is a hot topic and this is the time to write a book. I mean, you always write a book when the topic is hot. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be more books, and they're going to tell us what we already knew, because all of us were watching President Biden on TV. I mean, we were watching him, and we could see what was going on. And I have to tell you that, I vote Republican, and I didn't vote for Biden. But I do put the country first. I do believe that the country comes first before partisan politics. And I think it was very bad for the country to tolerate that kind of sickness and that kind of infirmity in a man who's president of the United States. Something should have been done. It wasn't. And that's where a little soul searching is necessary here on the part of many people. I've got a post coming out tomorrow talking about Vice President Harris. There's a story that came out that she's still in denial about the election. And I think a lot of Democrats are too. They're still in denial. They think that, if they had just called Trump a dictator just 10 more times, 1,000 more times, if they had called him a racist 10,000 more times, they would have somehow won the election. And in fact, it's the exact opposite. It's because they went in that direction that they lost a lot of the public. Now, in the case of Vice President Harris, as I'll point out in my article, another problem that she had was that she didn't do interviews. She didn't, she didn't take the vice presidency seriously, and she didn't take the candidacy seriously for president. And when you run for president on the assumption that people are going to vote for you because you want to make history, you want to be the first Black woman president. Well, some people probably will vote that way, but I think a lot of Americans are over that. I'm over that. I mean, I'm tired of all this identity politics. Vote for somebody because he or she is qualified. And she didn't present herself as a qualified candidate. I mean, she didn't answer questions. I mean, it is hard to believe that she would do an entire campaign without a press conference. I mean, that is hard to believe, but she did. So I'm hoping that the Democrats understand that they had a very weak candidate in their hands in 2024, and that the political terrain has changed a lot. The political terrain has changed. Now, Trump could blow that up if he has a bad presidency. I mean, nothing in politics is written in stone. So things could change in 2028. They could change in 2026. So, I'm not saying that things are set forever, but clearly the Democrats are going to have to go out and convince people, especially men. They're having a big problem with men. They're going to have to go out and convince men that their party's worth voting for. Well, just a little historical note here to say goodbye. It was 55 years ago today, April 10th, 1970, that Paul McCartney announced to the world that he was leaving the Beatles, thus effectively breaking up the group. The group had been pretty much broken up, if I could use that word, for quite some months. After they released Abbey Road, I mean, that was recorded in the spring and summer of 69 and released in September of 69. I mean, the group was basically recording old material. They weren't really doing anything worthwhile. They were pretty much, they were no longer really a group by let's say the first quarter of 1970. So when McCartney announced that he was leaving, it wasn't a big shock, but it was still a shock, I guess, for people who, like me, who liked the group. So that was the end of the Beatles 55 years ago. It's hard to believe that it's been that long ago, but I have to tell you, I grew up with him. And if anybody had said to me 55 years ago that I'd be talking about the Beatles in 2025, I'm not sure I would have believed it. I didn't think they would, we'd be talking about them 55 years later, but here we are talking about the Beatles. And if you look at the music sales, they continue to sell music. And I guess that's a tribute to the quality of their songs. They wrote some great songs, absolutely great songs. And those songs, I think, are going to be around for quite some time. I wouldn't be surprised if 50 years from now, somebody remembers the Beatles as well. Again, their songs are timeless. Well, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.